Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. So excuse me if I sound a little bit off, I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, but not so bad that we can't get some work done. So as you guys saw in the intro montage, I swapped the Mark IV and the SC, and the SC today is getting its new set of tires. So FedEx finally unlost the tires that I had ordered for the car, and they're obviously here, and it's now time to get them installed. So for the front, I chose these Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's. They are a nice summer tire, and I really like Michelins. I've had really good luck with them, and that's why I chose them for the front of the SC. Now for the rear, we have something a little bit more interesting and a little bit more high speed, as the size that I wanted for the rear in Michelin's were out of stock at my warehouse. So after a little bit of digging, the next best thing that I found was this pair of 285/40/18 Mickey Thompson ET Street SS's. I've ran these tires before in the past, and they are one of my favorite street tires for a little bit higher powered street car. They still have a good amount of siping to them, so not that you want to drive these in inclement wet weather any more than you have to, but they at least provide that bit of siping and that bit of water dispersion that a straight slick or like a Pro Radial or something like that will not. So with that being said, we need to go ahead and pull the Sumatomos that are probably, I don't even know how old they are at this point in time. They're from 2008, so quite old and quite in need of replacement. But with that being said, let's go ahead and start breaking these down, getting the new tires mounted to them, and we can get the Lexus back in a drivable fashion here very shortly. Well, we are shifting gears a little bit, but it's all for the sake of progress on the Toyota projects. And in order to make additional progress on them, we have a Subaru in the shop. So this is my buddy Dave's car, or his wife's car to be specific. And Dave is my painter buddy. You guys have seen him on the channel if you've been around, doing some beautiful paint work under the hood of the Mark II, and he is going to be knocking out a new set of headlights for the SC. As you can see, these ones are pretty much shot at this point in time, at least without disassembling them. And completely refinishing them. So I got another set of headlights for it from my buddy Nate, and Dave is doing his thing to clean them up a little bit, put a fresh coat of clear coat on them, and get them ready to go on the car. But that being said, we are doing some exhaust work on the Subaru here. And what we are going to do is to convert these 2-bolt flanges over to V-bands, at least these two right here. And B, we are building 2 straight pipe modules for this car. So all of the materials on the cart here are what I have in order to do this. We have these MBRP tips that Dave and his wife chose for this. The nice burnt blue should look pretty cool coming out of the back of the car with the blue color of it. But beyond that, we have some hanger rods. We have some 304 stainless UJs. We have a couple of concentric cones. And we have 2 2 3/8 inch V-band assemblies and 2 2 3/8 V-band or female V-band flanges. So we're going to be converting the existing NVIDIA exhaust over to V-bands, like I said, on those 2 joints right there. And then I'll have straight pipe modules coming out that will replace these muffler sections. So that way, with the simple undoing and redoing of a couple of V-band clamps, can take this car from being quiet and sedate to a loud, bumbly or growly, burbly Subaru. So it should sound pretty cool, and without further ado, let's go ahead and start some disassembly on this, as the first thing I need to do is to drop this Y section right here, cut these 2-bolt flanges off, do the V-band conversion, and then at that point in time, we'll be ready to start building rearward with the actual straight pipe modules. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that little montage of
building the straight pipe modules and doing the V-band conversion on the NVIDIA exhaust for Dave and his wife's WRX. So let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room now. This modification was done pretty much purely for the sound. So let's go ahead and hear what this WRX sounds like, uncorked, no mufflers, and as wild as we can make it with the setup that it has currently. Well, I think this thing sounds pretty good. It isn't overly loud, isn't crazy or anything like that, but eliminating those rear mufflers definitely woke the car up and provided us with the beautiful sounds this car makes. One thing that is pretty interesting is I'm used to boxer-powered cars, specifically Subarus, having that very distinct burble or growl or whatever descriptor you want to apply to it. But this car, and I talked to Dave a little bit about this, and you Subaru guys, if any of you are watching, you can correct me if I'm wrong. These being this generation WRX, have an engine that's completely different than their STI counterparts. So this engine, and maybe the way they designed the header, so on and so forth, there's something in it that makes it sound more like a traditional normal inline four-cylinder as opposed to the boxer engine. But that being said, I'm really happy with how this came out. I hope that Dave and his wife are as well. And most importantly, now that we have this car wrapped up, we have some things to take care of on the old SC over there. Well, it took a little bit of time this morning to reorient the exhaust tip on the passenger side of the Subaru. The way that it was before, the tip, the outside portion kind of tipped down in that manner, and it just did not look correct. So what I did is I cut that tip off, re-angled it, re-welded it, all of that, and now, if you guys can see, the angles match pretty well, and at least by the measurements that I'm able to take, it's plus or minus a degree or so from being even with the other side. So I'll call that good. And at this point, the Subaru is all wrapped up, which leaves us with the Lexus that you can see behind me. We need to pull that car in and swap the map sensor out. And once I get the car in the shop, I'll talk for a moment about why that is and what we're going to do with it moving forward. The other day, I took the SC out and started doing a little bit of street tuning with it. Not anything crazy, just with the car on wastegate pressure, but just to start getting some of the tuning underway, some of the drivability stuff, and a little bit of basic boost tuning. And pretty quickly, I realized that we have an issue with the map sensor. So, if I key on, then you can see on the dash when it boots up, right there is the boost reading on the dash itself. Then in the software, right there, manifold pressure, negative 15.8 inches of mercury. If we go into sensors, manifold pressure, that's what we look like with the scaling currently. And there's a bunch of scales, or filter scale, derivative filter, diag, so on and so forth. If I start the car, see that it goes to, it'll idle a little bit rough right now being cold, but you can see there's the manifold pressure on the computer, and then negative 12 pounds on the dash. So I'm not sure what exactly is going on, but in the logs that I've taken, so in the log here, I have the tan trace is the wideband, the orange is the engine RPM, and then green is manifold pressure. So where I have the cursor right now is where I took the car out to limiter, and fueling still needs a little bit of work, obviously, but the car definitely was making positive pressure. I can feel it in the seat, but you can see this plateau right here, these couple of plateaus, that it is saying that I'm still in vacuum, at least with how I am reading this log. So, not exactly sure what's going on, but I ordered another map sensor that I'll replace the old used up AEM one that's in here with a Haltech 5-bar, and we'll see if that makes a difference, and if not, then have some more diag to do.
So as you guys can see from that clip, the map sensor was not reading correctly. Now, air fuels were good enough where I wasn't concerned with melting a piston or causing any significant engine damage with what I was doing, but having the ECU not read or not understand the correct pressure that the engine is seeing, well, that's an issue that definitely needs to be solved before I make any additional progress with this. And that is where this part right here comes into play. So you can see right here I have a Haltech 5-bar map sensor. And this will replace the old AEM 3.5 bar map sensor that I have right here. So I talked to both Vlad and Bob about this, and the consensus seems to be that the scaling of the 3.5 bar sensor is off. As you guys could see in the clip, when I start the car up, the map sensor does read something. It's moving around, the values that it's presenting through NSP are changing, which signifies the map sensor is doing something. But that something that it is doing is not the right something. And I looked through the different scaling options for different sensors that are available in the ECU, and there's nothing listed there, at least that I saw, for a 3.5 bar sensor. That, coupled with whether on this turbo or another one, we will probably be turning the car up to the point where the 3.5 bar sensor won't suffice for the amount of pressure that it will see. So that is where the 5 bar sensor comes into play. And this should be a pretty easy swap here, but all of the progress that I've made with fuel tuning right now is I need to start over from scratch, essentially, as I was trying to combat faulty data, faulty readings with the fuel map that I was working on. And once we have the new sensor in and it's working correctly, all of those changes and all of that progress that I had made will need to be started over again. So let's go ahead and swap the map sensor over. Then I get into the ECU and I can change over the scaling to this 5 bar sensor and probably start the car and see just how far off the fuel map is. All right, after a quick and easy little swap, the new map sensor is in its home. And now I need to hook the laptop up to the car,
do the map sensor scaling, and then probably start this thing up and see just how much fuel I'm going to have to pull out of it to make it run and function properly. All right, well, I'll preface this by saying by no stretch of the imagination am I a tuner. I'm learning this and very green to it, just like many of you guys probably are as well. But I know enough to be dangerous with this, so let's see what we can figure out. So this map here should be what I had before I started doing any real fuel tuning. So this is what we're going to start with. So if I connect to this and then power the car on, so I'm not sure if you guys can see, but the dash is lit up. That's good to go. And I'm going to write all settings to device. It'll do that, and then it'll end up cycling the Haltech, or the whole car on and off probably. Right now it's giving me the prompt to do that. So device reboot, we're rebooted and we're good to go. So from here, manifold pressure. And we need to select from this whole amalgamation of different sensors which we're going to use. And right here, map Haltech TI5 bar, open, and that's good to go. So let me compare on this sheet right here, which is the sheet that came with the sensor. Half a volt is negative 29.5 psi / inches of mercury, and 4.5 is 60.3 psi / inches of mercury. And according to this chart, this is a linear relationship. So no jumps and jogs or anything like that, and should be good to go. From here, I guess let's try to start the car and see what happens. So the fuel pump was quite vocal there. Let's see if I can change that, because that was kind of obnoxious. Sitting at it makes me really happy. So let me go and see target lambda. Correct So I've gotten the car to free rev pretty cleanly. It still has a little bit of a pop on decel, which I'll have to play around with that. This is the map that I'm working with. Obviously, the resolution at the 10,000 RPM is a little bit excessive, but everything seems much happier. The car seems much better, much more responsive and happy and all of that. And so far so good, it seems.
Well, in the little bit of tuning that I've been doing on the SC, I'm running into not necessarily an issue, but kind of a quality of life improvement that I know that I can make. So right now, this car does not have any sort of an idle air control valve or motor or anything like that on it. It's relying purely on the timing tables in the ECU and manipulating timing to maintain an idle. And when the car is warmed up, that's no problem. It does that perfectly fine. However, to get to the point where it is warmed up and it is actually idling properly, it requires me to sit and hold the pedal a little bit open and essentially to act as the IAC. So for something like the Mark IV, I don't care about that. It's, for all intents and purposes, a race car, and it is a bit of, it requires a bit of additional attention and a bit of additional care. I can live with that. However, the SC, with its intent being kind of a drama-free, worry-free street car, I don't want to sit and have to apply throttle. I want to be able to start it, forget about it until the car is warmed up, and be able to go out and drive and go on my merry way. So the solution to that is this right here. This is a Mark IV Supra, or a 2JZ GTE specifically, idle air control valve. And what these do is create an electronically controlled air leak. You can play with the IAC, since it is an electric motor, and either open or close it to create that controlled leak on the intake manifold and allow it to sit and idle at whatever RPM that you would like, at whatever coolant temp, so on and so forth. It makes for proper function and proper operation of the car when it's warming up. So what I need to do is to install the IAC onto the intake manifold, which requires blowing the intake manifold apart, pulling the fuel rail off, manifold out, so on and so forth, so I can install it on the bottom of the intake manifold. There's a really nice spot in a pocket kind of underneath the manifold in this area over here that I'm going to use for it. And that will also give me the opportunity to do a couple of other things as well. I want to fix the lower cold side intercooler tube. The joint up here, where this tube connects to the intercooler, the tube does not align the best, and the weld ferrules or weld flanges don't align the best. So getting the clamp on there, since I am using these knockoff Wiggins clamps, or Schwiggins clamps as I affectionately refer to them, it makes aligning everything and getting everything seated pretty difficult, and I want to avoid that moving forward. So I'll alter that tube, put the IAC on the intake manifold, and then it's driving me crazy that we have some wrinkle black parts and a lot of raw aluminum parts. So this will also give me the opportunity to pull all of this stuff off, including the parts that I wrinkle spray painted, and take them over to my buddy Ryan at Late Apex Performance Coatings, have him work his magic and make them all beautiful and more than likely all wrinkle black. So we're going to quickly go down the rabbit hole, but by the time everything is said and done, this car will look much better, it will function much better, and I'll have the ability to actually tune idle and make the car run and function appropriately. So this right here is the misalignment that I'm talking about. You can see that this side of the tube is still butted up the way that it needs to be. But this side right here, you can see that pretty significant misalignment right there. And there's just enough width
on this sleeve that it will cover up the gap and I can get everything together. But by no means is it ideal, and it's quite frustrating to make it work the way that it is currently. So I'll simply cut this ferrule off of this tube and figure out what little sliver of a bend that I need to make these flanges sit a little bit more flush to each other and to make everything go together more easily, so on and so forth. With that little addition of a pie cut to the end of this tube, we can see now that when I hold this up in place, that is much better. And even if there ends up being a little bit of a gap there, I can certainly deal with that, as frankly you kind of want a little bit of space in between the two flanges or ferrules or whatever you want to call them to allow for movement around. But with this done now, we can shift focus to the intake manifold and getting the IAC put on it. So in order to do so, I have this flange on the bottom of the valve itself. I need to figure out the location where it will be sitting, mark it out, and then pull everything off, pull the intake manifold, drill a hole, and weld it on there. Just like that, all of the SC's parts that are going to powder are removed from the car, all the modifications are done, and I'm ready to go up to Ryan's. So we have the hot side intercooler tubes, we have the cold side intercooler tubes. We have the compressor cover, the intake tube, coolant overflow, the catch can, and then the intake manifold. So the intake manifold, like I talked about earlier, I added the IAC flange on the bottom of it right here. And I also added this M6 threaded boss to be able to fasten the throttle cable in place so it isn't moving around in the engine bay and hitting components that I don't want it to. But all of these parts, they're going to be coated in probably my signature wrinkle black, but it'll look really cool in the engine bay, as the theme under the hood of the SC is stealth, all black, and I think it'll look really sweet. But with all of these parts removed and ready to go out to powder, I think that will be a good place to leave off for this video.
So thank you guys, as always, for coming along on all these different journeys and all of these different adventures with me. Hope that you enjoyed this episode, even though it was a little bit out of left field, bringing the WRX in, knocking out the exhaust work on it, and the Lexus is at the point now where we are moving backwards to move forwards. With the IAC in place and the ability to actually tune idle correctly, that'll make a huge difference with this car. And these parts going to powder, coming back, being reinstalled, and then an alignment away from really diving into the tuning portion of this project. And I'm really looking forward to that, as this car is serving as kind of a test bed and a learning opportunity for me to play around with Haltech's NSP software. And the more familiar that I get with it on this car, the more of those lessons can be applied to the Mark IV and then the Aristo once we get to the point of putting a standalone ECU in it. Now, going along with the Aristo, I am going to begin ordering engine components for it, and I need to get with my buddy Matt to get a block and a crank for it, or a second block and crank, I should say. So that way I don't have to tear the engine that's in the car out of it to begin the engine build and turn that car into a paperweight for all intents and purposes. If I can build the engine on the side, on the stand, kind of next to the car, well, then I can still drive the car and enjoy it and everything else. And when the engine is done and I reach a point in time when I want to tear the car apart, I'll have the opportunity to do so at my leisure, as opposed to, like I said, the car being a paperweight for a period of time. And we'll get to the Mark II soon as well, with nice weather, and the forecast really has shifted over to spring at this point in time here. I really want to get that car out and drive it around and enjoy it. But all of those things are coming up in the future, and I'm really, really excited for this car. But we'll have to wait probably until next week's episode until we begin actually doing any street tuning and anything like that on it. So, with that being said, and before I run my mouth anymore, that'll be about the end of this one. So as always, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment. Check out the website for manifolds, for merch, for all things good that way, including my the newest offering that I have, the MCB collection. I have a variety of apparel and accessory options available in a really cool multicam black colorway, and I have more items coming for this collection in the very near future. So go ahead and check them out, and if any of those items do speak to you, feel free to pick them up. And if nothing there does, well, then hopefully I offer something in the future that does speak to you and that you would like to add to your collection. But with all of that being said, that'll be about the end of this one, and I will see you guys in the next episode.